Hi, and welcome to the Classroom Management Solutions live training. As everyone's joining here, I'm so glad to have you. We are going to be talking today about a simple plan to regain control of your classroom now, as well as to simultaneously set you up for next year. And I'm so glad that you are here to join us. If you are here right now, as we're getting ready for everyone that's joining us, you could do me a huge favor. If you can hear me right now, can you type in the chat box, yes, I can hear you? Because that's always the thing I'm most nervous about, that for some reason the technology is not working. So if you're hearing this, please let me know, and that will be a great help as we get everything set up and ready to go here. And while we're getting started, you can also feel free to introduce yourself. We'd love to hear where you're from, what you teach, anything else that you feel like sharing. Awesome. Yes, the sound is working. That's always great to know. So as we're in here, you will see sometimes people in the chat that are having trouble with the sound. If you want to help them out and let them know, since it definitely seems like the sound is working on our end, it's probably an issue with their own computer. So we can encourage them to check their own sound settings and such. As I said, we'd love to have you introduce yourself. I'd love to hear where you're from and what you teach. And maybe also how long you've been teaching. Are you new to teaching? Have you been doing it for a while? Oh, love to see. We've got people from all over the place here. We've got California, 2nd grade, 10th grade English, 8th grade algebra. That was me, 8th grade algebra. San Diego. Okay, I'm jealous, Hannah, of the sunny San Diego. We are still stuck in winter here in Ohio, but that's okay. As everyone's joining us right now, we're actually going to get started officially here in about 5 minutes, but just wanted to give a little bit idea about what we're going to be talking about today. You know, you might be thinking, why are we having a classroom management training this close to the end of the year? Isn't it kind of too late at this point? And I want to encourage you guys that it's not. And I have been here. I have been at this point in the year, and things weren't going quite the way I wanted to. But I really believe this is one of the best times to make changes for 2 reasons. One, because you can see improvements right now. You can finish the school year on a high note, or at least a not so low note, right? You can make changes. You want to do the best you can for your kids right now. But possibly even more importantly, sometimes we get this idea that, oh, I'll just try again next year. Like next year will somehow magically be better without us changing anything. And that's not true, right? So what we need to do is, if we want next year to be better, that means we need to start the year off right. And in order for us to start next year off right, we need to know what we're doing. And so now is the time to experiment, right? If things have been going bad, you almost have nothing to lose, right? Now is the time to try something new, to test out new techniques, to see what works for you, right? To try out a few different things, find out what you're comfortable with, what you're not. It will help your class now, and it will build your skills and confidence for next year. And so that's why I'm so excited to be doing this training now at the end of March, going into this last depends how long you've been, how much you have left of school. Some of you guys only have 6 weeks. Some of you guys have a good 2 to 3 months left. So it all depends where you're at. Oh, so great to see everyone here. Got someone in Catholic school from Detroit, veterans, newbies. Awesome. So glad to have you here. All right, we still got a couple minutes before our official start time, and I want to make sure we give everyone time to arrive. So we'll definitely do that. As I said, I'd love to hear, if you haven't introduced yourself yet, I'd love to hear, how long have you been teaching? And also, what age and subject do you teach? And a lot of people are also sharing where they're from, which is fantastic. You might be saying, man, like this is a wide variety. Are we really going to be able to have a training that's going to be helpful for kindergartners and 10th grade English teachers and everything in between? And the answer is yes. What we're talking about here are going to be general principles, and we're going to talk about how to apply them across different age groups. But these are principles that will work across the spectrum. You'll apply them differently, obviously, in kindergarten than you would in high school. But all the way K through 12, you'll be able to take away some really helpful ideas, I pray. At least that's what everyone says that has gone through this training. So I'm praying it will be helpful for you as well. All right, and we already established that everyone can hear us, so that's great. So we're going to get started here shortly, and hopefully those that are having trouble hearing can check their sound and get on here soon. Awesome. So excited to see everyone here. It's fantastic. Just so you know, too, throughout the training, I'm doing the main training, but I love to answer questions throughout it. So typically, if we're doing well with time, I'll stop periodically throughout the training to answer a question or two, and then at the end, we'll have a time designated specifically for questions. So if I'm not getting to your question in the middle of the training, definitely stick around for the end, and you can ask it again. And I typically stay on as long as I need to get all the questions answered. So definitely have your questions ready. You can ask them at any point, and we'll try to mark them so that we can answer them later. But like I said, you can always ask them again at the end if for some reason we miss it. Carol's asking, how long is this training? It's about 1 hour is what we plan for it. So it should go just about 1 hour. And we will have a certificate at the end as well, that depending on how you're awarded professional development, but you get the certificate and you can print it off and use it for your records or however would be helpful for you. All right, just about 1 more minute. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to have everyone here. This is awesome. Sarah said, teaching has changed a lot. Yes, it really has, hasn't it? So many things. It's changing so quickly. Heidi, there's not a handout in particular, so that's actually something I'm going to mention here in a little bit. You probably want to grab a sheet of paper and a pen. This would be the perfect time to do so if you want to take a few notes. We do try to have a video replay if anyone happens to get kicked off or wants to go back and watch it a second time. We try to do that if our technology cooperates, and we'll definitely send that to you guys sometime tomorrow. All right, it's 8:45, so we are going to go ahead and get started. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to actually pray for just a moment here real quickly first. That's helpful to me, and I know it's helpful to a lot of you guys as well. Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity that we are here, that we can talk across technology, across the country and around the world. And I just pray that you will make this a super helpful time for these teachers. Please give me the words to say. Let it be beneficial to each one of them. Let each one take away something helpful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, as we're getting started here, if you haven't done so yet, once again, let's introduce yourself. How long have you been teaching, and what ages and what subjects do you teach? And I think we've established that everyone can hear, which is fantastic. So here we go. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your class is just a little bit out of control? Or what about, have you ever stood in front of your classroom and just thought, oh my goodness, I don't think anyone is listening to me? How about this one? Have you ever wondered, man, I just don't know what to do to fix this problem? Well, if you have, you are not alone. I have totally thought all three of those things. And in particular, my first year was really rough. And I didn't expect it to be. I kind of thought I knew what I was doing going into teaching. I'd actually had some really good training, but I made a few key mistakes, and those few mistakes really took a toll, and it really caused a whole lot of problems. So I want you to know, if you're feeling like that, you are not alone. But the good news is you don't have to stay there. By the grace of God, I was able to get some help, get some advice, and really turn some things around. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. In particular, I've arranged this training into a 5-step plan that's going to help you regain control of your classroom. And of course, get you smiling again. And if you were here when a few minutes early, I was also talking about how important it is that this is not only going to help your classroom this year, but this will also help you next year, because that fresh start next year is so important. But if you don't build your skills and your confidence and figure out what's working and what doesn't now, you're not going to be able to start next year right either. So this is such a great time of year to try something new, to figure out what will work and what won't for you. So, just in case, I don't know how many of you know me. That would be super helpful if you want to share how many of you have been around Teach for the Heart for a while, how many of you are brand new. My name is Linda Cardamus, and I taught middle school math at a Christian school in Ohio before I started having kids. And after I stepped away from the classroom to raise my family, uh, just through a series of events, God just led, and I was able to start Teach for the Heart. And I'm also the author of Create Your Dream Classroom and the creator of Classroom Management 101, as well as the author of Teach Uplifted Devotions for Teachers. And I have a new book that's about to come out. I'll be sharing a little bit about that in the next couple weeks. Oh, it's so good to hear so many of you guys are newer to Teach for the Heart. Got some people that have been around for a while as well. So it's great to have a variety. Welcome those of you that are new. Welcome those of you that have been around here with us for a while. So as I said, we're going to be talking about a 5-step plan. So if you want to grab a sheet of paper and a pencil to take some notes, this is the perfect time to do so. All right, let's jump right in. Step number 1. First thing that you need to do as a teacher is you need to find the right demeanor. Let me ask you this. As a teacher, should you be strict or nice? It's a little bit of a trick question, right? If you immediately said strict or you immediately said nice, you're actually missing the fact that you've got to be both, right? You need to be both kind and firm. And I'm so glad those of you that knew that right away. But let's talk about exactly what that means. See, here's the thing. As teachers, most of us have a desire we want to be there for our students, right? We want to, in a sense, befriend them and have them know that we care about them. Sometimes, though, we can take that too far. We can focus on being liked, and that can get us into trouble if we don't figure out what should my demeanor be as a teacher. How do I show them I care without being too familiar? So here's a few do's and don'ts. You don't want to try to be their friend. If you're thinking of yourself as your student's friend, chances are that's not going to work out so well. Instead, try this subtle shift. Instead, think of yourself as their mentor. Now, a mentor is very different than a friend, right? Now, they're both approachable, they're both there to help, they're both supportive, but a mentor is someone that's not on the same level, right? They're there to help, they're there to pull up, they're there to encourage. So that subtle mindset shift can make a huge difference for those of you that are kind of struggling with thinking, man, like am I a friend? How do I do this? So instead of thinking of yourself as a friend, think of yourself as a mentor. Second, don't worry about being liked. Now, I don't think there's a single one of us out there that would say, I want my students to hate me. Obviously not, right? But the key is that word worry. You can't worry about being liked. If you're concerned about that, that is going to cause you to make bad classroom management choices. And unfortunately, the result of that is that you end up creating a classroom with chaos and you end up not being liked. So instead, focus on being respected and on earning your students' respect. So once again, it's this little subtle shift, but it's very powerful and it's very important to think, I want to earn my students' respect instead of thinking, man, I really want my students to like me. And when they do respect you, they're probably going to be one of those teachers you look back on and think, man, I really liked them. They had a great class. So as we said, we want to be both kind and firm at the same time. You should be nice, right? Students should think, oh, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, they're a nice teacher. I enjoy talking to them. You should be personable and friendly. You should be understanding to students when they're having a difficult time. You should be understanding and show them that you care and be empathetic with their situation. You can even, and I hope that you are, be fun to be around, right? You can be fun and students should enjoy your class. Your class should not be boring and dull. It should be fun. But at the same exact time that you're nice, personable, understanding, fun, You also have high expectations, right? And you hold your students to them. That doesn't mean that anything goes. You deal with issues that come up. You don't let things slide. You deal with them kindly and firmly. And you're not a pushover. So, as we put these together, as we're nice, we're understanding, but we deal with things, we have high expectations, you will develop that right teacher demeanor that isn't the end all be all by itself, but is the foundation that you need to have in order to develop strong classroom management. So let's stop a minute before we go on to step number 2 and make it personable. And I'd love for you guys to share, even in the chat box, kind of what your takeaway is here. What do you need to change about your demeanor? Are there any of those subtle shifts that resonated with you and you thought, yes, that's me. I need to think this differently, or I need to do that differently? Go ahead and share those in the chat box. I'm going to give you guys just a second to write down your thought. And as I'm doing that, just checking a few of these Q&A, Stephanie asked if this is going to be recorded. Yes, as long as our technology works out, it will be recorded. Yes. All right, great to see some of you guys' observations here. Rebecca says, I need to be a little more firm, not give too many chances. One says, I'm a little too sarcastic. Yeah, this sarcasm has its place. That can be a form of humor, but yeah, sometimes that can go too far. Oh, it's these great observations. Love reading all these. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Remember to smile. I love that. Yes, absolutely. It can be hard to smile sometimes when you are stressed, but try to remember, yeah, you remember you got into teaching because you wanted it to be fun. I know at least I did. I thought it'd be so fun. And sometimes we just get bogged down with all of it. And so trying to remember that can be really helpful. All right, one other thing. What's one specific way you can start changing this tomorrow? What's just something small that you can do tomorrow that will help change this? So, step number 1 is to find the right demeanor as a teacher. Step number 2, you need to develop systems to help get your students' attention and to eliminate distractions. So we're going to talk, there's a whole bunch of classroom management challenges, but these are a couple of the main ones. And so let's talk about these 2 in particular. First of all, for regaining attention, I remember when I was teaching, I had not found out the solution I'm about to share with you. And I remember trying so many ways to get students' attention. I'm talking either if, that dreaded moment when the class, like suddenly you realize, oh my goodness, the whole class is talking, I just lost them. Or even when it's intentional, where you let your students work on something in a group and suddenly now you need to get their attention. I had tried it all. The stand and quiet and wait, the raise the hand, the yell. I even tried to flip the lights. I was like, this could be our policy. We could flip the lights. That didn't work either. This is a fantastic solution. And it doesn't matter whether you teach K or 12, you can find an adaptation that works for your age group. And they're called class response sayings or call and response sayings. How many of you guys already use these? I'd love to hear. They're getting more and more well known, but if you're not familiar with them, basically the idea is when you want to get your students' attention, you have to teach this to them. But what you do is you say something and they respond. So the most basic is called the class yes. So you would say class, and your class responds yes. And the beauty of this is that it's not a passive response. In all those things I used to try, standing and waiting, flicking the lights, raising my hand, I was asking my students to be quiet, which is passive. Whereas with the call and response saying, you're asking them to respond, which is active. So when the students say yes, that automatically cuts off the conversation they were having and gets them back onto your focusing back on you. And here's a list of some right here. There's so many more. I see some of you guys sharing your fun ones. Definitely keep sharing them, especially if those of you that teach high school, if you have some that are more appropriate for high school, I'd love to hear those as well. And like I said, class yes is a super simple one. Also for high school, maybe find something that like let them come up with them. Obviously you have to be careful about that, but find something that's in their wheelhouse, find something that's on their level, something with them, just something that's almost like an inside joke or something that's relevant to them, or it could be something relevant to what you're studying in class. So find a fun one that works for them, or the simple class yes, I think honestly works for all ages. All right. So once again, you have to teach this to your students. You can't just walk in tomorrow and say class and expect them to do it. You have to practice this, which we're actually going to talk about soon. But this is a great system. If you don't use it, I highly recommend it. All right. So how about eliminating distractions, right? Okay, this is this is something we all deal with, whether it's the students that blurt out answers or just like off track chatter or other disruptions, students walking around the room. How do you deal with all these distractions that aren't related to learning? They're just distractions. And there's all kinds of ways to deal with them. I'm just going to share two ideas with you. And if one of these resonates with you, then run with it. If not, then keep talking with people here. We've got a smart group of almost 600 teachers on here right now. Maybe they can share their ideas. But here's one idea. It's called whole brain teaching. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with this. But whole brain teaching is a whole system. And I don't know if I were teaching, I don't think I'd use the whole system, but I love elements of it. So once again, you can actually use a call and response to correct misbehavior and distractions. I think this especially is powerful in elementary and maybe up through middle school. So basically, one of the rules in whole brain teaching, you can make up your own rules or you can use theirs, is raise your hand for permission to speak. I think it's rule 2. So you teach your students that when you say rule 2, the class says out loud, raise your hand for permission to speak. And if you're in upper grades, it's that simple. If you're in lower grades, there's fun hand motions, right? So let's say that Elizabeth is, just blurts out an answer. You say, oh, Elizabeth, that's correct. But remember rule 2. And when you say rule 2, the whole class says out loud, raise your hand for permission to speak. The nice thing about this is that you saw and corrected the issue without embarrassing the student, without making a big deal about it, but everyone was quickly reminded of the rule and the rule was reinforced in everyone's mind quickly, simply, and without drama. So that's why I think I like this idea. And there's lots of other great ideas in whole brain teaching too. I talk a little bit about it in Classroom Management 101, and there's also whole books and websites by Chris, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Biffle. That might not be the right pronunciation, but he has a whole website with fantastic ideas. So that's one idea. Another idea is a warning system. And this is what I used when I was just really struggling, and it was very helpful for me. So here's how it works. Well, actually, there's a few different forms a warning system can take. It can be a behavior chart. You guys have all seen those. It can be Class Dojo, which if you're not familiar with it, write down Class Dojo. It's just classdojo.com. It's an online site where you can assign positive and negative behavior points. You can do it anonymously, or there's just so many options. Check it out. So you can do a behavior chart. You can do Class Dojo. When I was teaching, we didn't have Class Dojo yet. So I just wrote names on the board. And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. So if that doesn't fit your school culture, don't do it. It fit my school culture. So it worked well. And I just explained to my middle schoolers, I was like, listen, I'm not trying to teach you like an elementary kid. This is just a quick way for me to give you a warning. But honestly, you can give a warning any way you'd like. And I'm going to explain it a little bit more here in a moment, exactly how the warning system works. But the point is, you need a way to just recognize and tell the student that they are just being disruptive. All right. So you need a way to do it without stopping class. And so when I say any way you'd like, I've seen teachers have like a pile of Post-its and like put a Post-it note on their desk or put a sticker on their desk or have a chart on, or that they have up with them. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. The point is you're giving a warning. So here's how it works. Sorry, I'm not getting into the details yet. Here's the details. If a student's talking or blurting or, doing something distracting, basically what you do is you just give the warning. So in my class, I went over and I wrote their name on the board. If you have Class Dojo, you just mark it in there. And here's the thing, you do not stop teaching. At least I recommend that you don't, because the whole point is we're trying to eliminate the distraction, right? So this is kind of the opposite of approach of whole brain teaching where you just quickly recognize it and move on. This one, you're trying not to interrupt your flow of teaching. So you just give the warning and you move on. Now, a warning is just that. It's a warning. And you got to explain this to your kids. You got to explain to them, you're not in trouble. And I use those words directly. That's if you see our featured article this week on Teach for the Heart. You're not in trouble. All right. The warning is not trouble. It's simply a warning. The whole point is just for me to let you know that you're being disruptive. And for you to think, oh, I'm being disruptive, I need to stop. That's all it is. And if you teach your students that, it brings the drama down like 10 notches. Now, you do need to give consequences eventually if they don't heed the warnings. So in my class, if they got three warnings in the same class, so yeah, a name and then two tallies or check marks, whatever you want to call them, in the same 40-minute class, that's when I gave consequences. And I did. You might think, man, like, did anyone ever do that? Well, not really. It was really rare for someone to get three in the same class. For me, that was the point. I didn't want to be giving out consequences like crazy for talking in class, right? All I wanted was a way for them to self-correct and get back on track. And so I didn't want it to be this hard thing that they were always stressed about. I just wanted a way to acknowledge it, them to self-correct, move on. And of course, if they totally ignored the warnings, I did have to have a consequence ready. So you need to have a consequence ready. And you'll probably have to give it once or twice when you first implement the system. But over time, you might not even need it. So just to share, why did I do this? I really like the individual responsibility aspect of it. I know there can be benefits to group rewards and group punishments, but they can be extremely frustrating to your students who are really trying. And also, a lot of times with group punishments or group rewards, like when you say, how many times have you stood up in your class and said, class, stop talking, and the kid who's talking like totally ignores you, right? So when they see their name or a post-it note on their desk or, their thing in Class Dojo, they realize, oh, this is me. Okay, I need to change something. As I said, I love that it curbs behavior without nagging or punishing. I hardly ever actually had to give consequences. And I didn't have to nag. I didn't have to stop talking 100 times a day until we were all sick of it and none of us were it was just going over everyone's head. And it works. It works really well. So I really found it helpful. Sophia asked, teaching them to self-correct, how? What I mean by that is when they see a warning, the point is that you teach them that when they see a warning, they need to think, oh, I need to not be disruptive for that. I need to stop. So just helping them self-correct in that way. I hope that makes sense. Now, some of you might be a little bit nervous right now in just the fact that you might think, man, but I've read articles and I've heard people say that behavior charts and warning systems, these aren't good ideas. I read there's this article on Pinterest I saw that said, I ditched my behavior chart and it was the best thing I ever did. And now you're telling me to do a behavior chart. I don't understand. Here's the thing. I think this is there's really a lot of opinions on this, but as I've really thought about this is where I've come out. Teaching is a journey. You are not the teacher now that you will be in 5 years or 10 years. At least I certainly hope not. I hope I'm not, right? Here's the thing. Ditching a warning system is a great eventual goal. I hope that in 10 years, you don't need a warning system anymore. All right. I hope that you don't. I found that by my 4th year of teaching, I hardly needed this system anymore. I used it in the beginning of the year, and I normally taught about 6 different classes. So for my 1 or 2 roughest classes, it stuck around. But for the rest of my classes, it pretty much got phased out after the first month or 2. I didn't really need it. But you need order. And here's the thing. Other methods, these teachers that are saying I'm ditching my behavior chart and I'm doing this instead. What they're doing instead requires more skill and experience and confidence and nuances. And so if you're ready for that, then that's fantastic. That's probably better. But if you're not there yet, if you're struggling, it's better. The behavior chart is not going to kill anyone's psyche. You're not going to scar them for life. It's just if you do it right, if you make it this big stressful thing, it can cause problems. But if you do it the way I recommended, teach them it's just a warning. This is just to help you. This is not a big deal. That it can be an incredible tool to help you create order. Because like I said, if you're here and you're thinking, I'm struggling, this is a great tool to help you. And it's much better to have someone to have a system that works for you. If you don't need it, don't use it. But if it's going to be helpful for you, then I just want to eliminate a little bit of that guilt that you might be feeling. Do not feel guilty for doing something that's going to help your class be an orderly. That's good for everyone. And like I said, a few years down the road, revisit it and ask yourself, do I still need this? Can I do something else now? And you can move beyond it at that point. I hope that makes sense. We can talk more about that for sure. And those of you that say, man, like my administrator doesn't want this, try to find alternate methods. Like I said, you can use the whole brain teaching, the first option that I mentioned. Or like I said, you don't actually have to have a behavior chart. You can use post-it notes on desks. You can use Class Dojo, which is wonderful because it has both positive, you can do encouragement through Class Dojo as well. So find a system, find a way to make it work. Don't feel like you have to do it exactly how I said. Definitely not. So let's make it personal. What system will you use to get attention? And what system will you use to eliminate distractions? You might need to think this through a little bit, but jot down a tentative plan. And I'd love to hear this here as well. And some of you have mentioned, man, I need some consequence ideas. We actually do have a consequence ideas list that I'm happy to share with you guys. So we will get that. And share that with you guys as well. I'll get that link at the end. I don't actually have it off the top of my head. Okay, I'm just going to answer a couple questions here before we move on. Class Dojo is a website where you can basically, each student has their, you put all your students in there, and you can do it with their names, or I believe you can do it anonymously with, I don't know, I forget if it's numbers, or basically though where other students don't know each student's account. And you can, from your iPad or phone or computer, you can assign positive points and negative points for different behaviors. And so it's a nice way to track it, and the students can see it too, and the parents. Amy says, when I use call and response, the students had a tendency to say the response and then turn back to each other and finish their conversations. Okay, yes. So the thing is, that goes back to training and teaching. And I think these next two steps are really going to help you to correct that. So yeah, that'll be the natural tendency unless you're on that. And we're about to get to that here in a moment. All right, so glad to see some of these thoughts. Let's move on. Let's see, I'm just looking for any other important questions here. Otherwise, we'll do the rest at the, man, this chat is going faster than I can keep up with that. Which whole brain book do you recommend? I would just go straight to Chris Biffle's Whole Brain Teaching for Struggling Students and the Rest of Your Class Too, I think is the name of it. It's a fantastic one. Actually, full disclosure, I haven't read it, but I've heard amazing things about it, and I watched his videos, so I'm familiar with him, not from the book, but from his other stuff. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Hold on to these questions if you still have some. First of all, I think some of these next three pieces I'm about to share with you will help put some of this together. Some of you that are saying, okay, I tried this and it didn't work. You might have missed some of these other pieces. And then, of course, we can also take some more questions at the end. All right. Step number 3, shake up your problem areas. Here's the thing. I want you to think right now. What situation, circumstance, or routine is causing the most problems in your class right now? You can share it right now. It might be chatter and blurting. It might be the start of class. It might be transitions. It might be bathroom breaks. Think about it right now. What is that situation? Maybe there's a lot of them, but pick one for now that is just causing so much havoc in your classroom. What we're going to do is we are going to shake up that problem area. So first of all, you're identifying it. That's what you're doing right now. Very good. Transitions, chatter, disruption, start of class. Yes. Okay, fantastic. So you're identifying your problem area. Now, the second step, you need to determine a better procedure for this situation. Now, that's what we basically just did. We just gave an example with the warning system. But basically what I mean with it by this is you need to think, in an ideal world, what would this look like? So let's take transitions, okay? And this is going to look very different in middle school versus high school, or, versus elementary. But let's say, okay, we're transitioning from one activity to the next. Okay, ideally, they would, get out their books and they would just, think about what you want it to look like. I have trouble, honestly, with transitions, using that as an example. So I'm not going to use that as an example, because for me, I did transitions. I just talked through them. I gave no break. I just talked, and I kept talking right through the transition. And so I had very few problems with transitions. So there's an idea for those, but let me use start of class, because I think it also applies to transitions. So whether it's you're transitioning between subjects in elementary, or you're starting a class in middle school, high school, or start of day in elementary. Let's say you're having problems with this. You want to think, what do I wish it looked like? Okay. I want students to walk into the room. I don't want them to talk to their friends. I want them to go straight to their seat. I want them to get out. I'm gonna have a bell work for them to work on. I want them to work on that activity, and I want them to clear their desk off and get and sharpen their pencils. Like think through, what do I want it to look like? What is the ideal scenario? And it might be different than what you're doing. Like, let's say bathroom break, you might be like, man, I need a different routine. My routine isn't working. So talk to other teachers and think, what would be a better way for this to go in a perfect world? Well, let me take that back. Not in a perfect world, just like in an ideal situation, right? What would make sense if I can get my students to follow a procedure? What procedure do I want them to follow? So once you have that in your mind, and you might not have that right this second, so you might need to write a note, talk to so-and-so, get ideas, right? You want to find a way to shake it up. Now, here's the thing. If this were the beginning of the year, you could teach your students pretty much any procedure that you wanted. But since it's March, almost April, you want to find a way to shake it up. Now, if spring break is now or coming up, coming back from spring break with a shake-up is fantastic. But you can do a shake-up anytime. The point is, you want to do something to show your students that things are going to be different. So rather than just standing in front of your class and saying, class, from now on, you need to come into the room right, you want to do something to get their attention. Okay, so here's a few ideas. You could take something out of the room. So I was talking with a teacher on one of our coaching calls one time, and she was saying that her students were having so much trouble in elementary with this coat rack. They were supposed to come in and hang up their coats, and they were getting into so much trouble at the coat rack. And so we said, what if for your classroom shakeout, you hid the coat rack? Like you took it out of the room or you put it back in your closet. She's like, yeah, I can do that. And so when the students come in to go hang up their coats, they're going to be like, wait a second, where is the coat rack? And they're going to be confused, and they're going to be asking, they're going to be wondering. And the point is, it's going to cause a ruckus, right? But this ruckus is very intentional. The point of the ruckus is for them to go, wait, what is going on? And you've primed them and you've forced a reset. So think about it in your situation, is there something that could be taken out of the room? Another idea is to simply not let the students in the room. So this one I would clear with your administrator. But if the problem, for example, is coming into the room, or honestly, this can work for a lot of things. Just lock the door and stand outside. So when your students come, they're like, why can't we get in the room? What's going on, Mrs. So-and-so? What's happening? Why can't we come in? Another idea is to skip a part of your routine. Let's say you're having trouble with bathroom breaks. You always take a bathroom break on the way back from lunch. Well, this time you come back from lunch and you go right into your room. All of your students are going to ask you, why aren't we taking a bathroom break? We always take a bathroom break. What's going on? Why aren't we doing this? They're going to be confused, right? So these are just a few ideas, and we can help you brainstorm some more ideas at the end. But kind of jot out some ideas here. What is something I could do that would cause them to ask me, what's going on? And maybe too, it would be adding something. Maybe you could add something into the room. It could be something in the front, or you could just be standing in the back and have a sign on the front. That's something simple, right? You could just simply be sitting at your desk and have something on the whiteboard when students come in, and they'd be like, why is this on the whiteboard? What's going on? You could just have a word or something, and you're just almost ignoring them, and just do something different. Do something that's not the norm to get their attention. So the point is to use actions, not just words, to show the students that things will be different. That is your goal. You were trying to do something other than just say, now we're going to do this different, right? Do something to get their attention. So you might not know right now what you're going to do to shake it up, but just jot a note and think, okay, I got to think this through. I got to think of an idea. It doesn't have to be the perfect idea. It just needs to get their attention. Once you've gotten their attention, now you need to teach the new procedure. So the way this works is, all right, you come in, let's say it's the day after spring break, or it's just simply Wednesday. It doesn't matter. And you have the shake up. You're sitting back at your desk, you're ignoring your students, you've got a word on your board. And you've got the word stop written on your board. And all your students are coming in the room and they're going, what is going on? Like, why does this say stop on the board? Like, I don't understand. And you're just like, the bell rings and you're just sitting at your desk and like, they're like, what is going on? And this might not be you might want to do something a little more dramatic even than this, because the point is you want them to come to you. You don't want it to be something they can ignore. You really want it, maybe you have like sheets on their desk or something, and they come to you and they're like, what is going on? I'm so confused. Or you're standing outside your door and the door is locked and they're like, why can't we get in? Once they come to you and ask what is going on, now it's time to say, it's not time to lecture. It is not time to yell. It might be, you might be appropriate to say, I apologize. I have not taught you guys the correct procedure for coming into the room, but I'm going to teach it to you now. And from now on, this is how we're going to come into the room. All right. And so you're going to teach your new procedure. And it's very important how you teach it, whether it's this procedure or any procedure at all. So this is also something very key to remember next year when you teach all your new procedures at the beginning of the year too. First key is to explain. Do not just say, come into the room correctly. What does that mean? You need to be very specific. Okay, we're going to walk into the room. You're going to walk straight to your desk. You're not going to go talk to your friend. You're going to sit down. You're going to clear everything off your desk, and you're going to get out your homework from last night. I have a practice problem written on the board. You're going to get out a sheet of paper and work on that practice problem. When you're done, you're going to get out a book to read and wait until I'm ready to start class. All right, here we go. See how I gave lots of specifics? You want to give as many specifics as you can think of and address all the problems that you've seen, but in a positive way, right? This is what we're going to do. Secondly, you need to practice it. All right. So you have to practice the procedure. If you just tell them and you don't practice it, they're not going to really remember it. So you actually need to say, okay, now let's do it. Now, a lot of you do this. A lot of you do practice your procedures, but it's not enough just to practice it. There's actually two more important pieces. The third piece is to correct it. So in other words, as the students come into your room, they're going to do a much better job than normal, right? You just did a shakeup. You just got their attention. But chances are, Michael's going to run a little bit and, Erin's going to go talk to her friend before she goes to her seat. So you need to correct that. You need to say, oh, Erin, remember, we're not going to talk to Olivia first. You need to go right to your seat. So you need to make a note of the things that were done incorrectly. And you're doing this in a very kind way. You're not yelling at them. You're not getting upset at them. Realize this is new for them, right? They're learning a new procedure. You want to give them a lot of grace and patience, but you also don't want to let things go, right? You just want to kindly correct everything that you see that was incorrect. And are you ready for the magic? This is the magic. Have them redo the pieces that were done incorrectly. This is going to feel like you're being nitpicky. This is going to feel unnecessary. It's going to feel like a waste of time. But if you actually have Michael go back out of the room and walk, if you have Erin go back out and come back in and go straight to her desk, that's going to cement it in their mind. They're going to realize, oh man, I needed to do this differently. My teacher means business. She says it, and it's not only do they realize you mean business, but it's also helpful because then they. Sorry, I got to tickle my throat. It's also helpful because it helps them remember it, right? If you just say something like, even if they have the best intentions, they're like, oh yeah, and then they're going to forget. So having them redo it really helps cement it. I'm just noticing a few comments here as you guys are going here. I see a lot of you saying, man, like, I feel like my students, I can't imagine my students doing this. Like, my students are going to have, it's not going to work with them, or, I've tried this and I get pushback. One of the truths is that at this point in the year, if you've been having trouble all year and you've lost some respect, you are not going to get back to the point of everything being fantastic. A classroom shakeup, that's not the goal of a classroom shakeout at this point in the year. The goal of it at this point in the year is to try to get down, like let's say you're down here on level 1. You want to get up to level 2, right? You're not trying to get all the way back up to where you want to be. You're just trying to make things a little bit better at this point. And it is going to be hard. If you've lost respect, if your students are used to just simply not listening to you, it's going to be hard. But remember, the goal of this is to build your skills, to build your confidence. The whole entire second half, or even almost second 2/3 of my the second and third of my first year was spent trying to claw myself out of the hole that I had created. And it was not fun. It was really difficult. But here's the thing, things did improve. They never got to where I wanted them to be that year, but they got better. And more importantly, I learned how to deal with stuff better. I learned the way I should have started the year. And the magic happened when that next fall, I took the skills that I had learned and the things I had practiced and the way I practiced teaching procedures and the way I practiced dealing with problems. And I started the year with that. And since everything was new and I started the year off like that, it was night and day better. So I want to encourage you, those of you that are really struggling, do your best. Try some of these things now. Implement them. Do your best. Even if they're a disaster, just say, I'm going to stick with them. I'm going to build my own skills. And if I've got a few students that just don't listen to me right now, I'm just going to do my best. And I'm going to share a few strategies here in a minute with those. But I'm going to do my best, and it's going to really help me out next year. All right, let's make it personal before we jump into the last few. Do you have any ideas? How do you want to shake up your problem area? Starting whenever you want to start it, whether you want to do it this week or wait till after spring break, whenever is good for you. All right, I want to stop and answer questions. I'm seeing like some of you guys have some great questions, but I want to make sure we get through all this. So I'm going to continue now and we'll take questions at the end. So step number 4, let's review first. We found the right demeanor. We thought of systems to eliminate chatter, eliminate distractions, get attention. Number 3, we planned a classroom shakeup and we executed a classroom shakeup. All right, so let's imagine you do your classroom shakeup, you teach your new routine, everything's going good until it's not, right? So step 4 is deal with problems while they are small. This was my biggest mistake my first year teaching. I did not deal with little problems. And there were a few reasons for this. First reason is because I didn't know how to deal with them, right? So let's say a student was just talking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to give him attention. I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I figured it just wasn't a big deal, right? They're just talking a little bit, or they just have their head down, they're just leaning back in their chair. It's just not really that big of a deal. I'll just let it go, right? It's not a problem. But I wish it wasn't a problem. I wish we could just let the little things go. And with certain classes you can, but human nature is that little problems don't stay little. They what's the word? They grow and they grow, right? They get worse and worse and worse. And that's what happened with me, right? But my little whispering here and a little comment there and someone just walking around the room without asking, here, pretty soon just slowly digressed. And because I hadn't dealt with it, I didn't deal with a little bit worse, and then it got a little worse and a little worse, and pretty soon I was literally standing in front of my class and everyone was talking. Well, I shouldn't say everyone. 2/3 of the class was talking, not listening to me. I was trying to start class and I did not have any of their attention or respect. And my principal called me into my room, into his office around October, and it must have been worse than I thought, because he was basically like, you got to muster every ounce of authority that you have. Like, there is some stuff going on in your classroom and it is not okay. And I was like, oh no. And it all started because I had little problems that didn't stay little. And the problem is, by this point in the year, if you're in that pickle, you're like, man, like I have all these big problems. That's the point of the classroom shakeup. All right. So maybe you're not doing this across the board, but let's say we dealt with coming into the room. Well, you did a classroom shakeup. You explained that procedure. So now be super vigilant in that area, okay? And deal with those problems while they're small. So the next day, when students come in, if you notice a few students, running or not going straight to their desk or not getting out their stuff, deal with those problems while they're small, right after your classroom shakeup. And then next year, be with your newfound skills and experience, deal with every problem while it's small, those magical first 2 weeks of school. Now, here's the thing. What does deal with mean? This was one of my problems. I thought deal with meant I had to give it attention, and it doesn't. It does not mean that. Deal with can be as simple as saying, Olivia, please stop talking, or using the system that we had. It can be the warning system. It can be the whole brain teaching, saying rule 2 and having the whole class repeat it. It can be as simple as having somebody repeat the procedure. Oh, you didn't come in right. Can you go back in and come in come in quietly? You just need to do something to recognize what to say. You notice what happens and it's not okay, and they need to do it, and they need to not continue doing it. They need to do it differently. And like I said, after the reset is the time to do this, because hopefully, right after your classroom shakeup and right after you have their attention, it's not gonna be a flood. It's gonna be one or two that start doing it. And it could be 1 minute later, right? It could be 1 minute after your shakeup, but it shouldn't start as a flood. It should start as a trickle after your shakeup. And if you deal with those first couple, that should make a difference. And that should kind of have your students thinking, something's a little different here. So let's make this personal. How will you deal with the first problem that arises after your shakeup? And Denise says, fall back on your classroom rules and consequences. Yeah, if you don't have a discipline plan, if you don't have if you've never written out for yourself, what are my rules and what are my consequences? That's something we teach in Classroom Management 101, and I highly recommend doing that. You just sit down and write down, what am I going to do when this happens? What am I going to do when that happens? So it's clear in your mind. And then just do your best to stick with it. Practice consistency, even if you don't see the results, because that practice will pay off when next year starts. All right, step number 5. Develop relationships with your students. And this is kind of your key for long-term success, especially with those students that are the most difficult. I love Stephen Covey's example of an emotional bank account. He talks about, imagine each student has this bank account into which you can make deposits and withdrawals. So deposits are when we show students that we care, when we attend their basketball game, when we show interest in the things that they're interested in, when we empathize with them in their struggles. And like I said, when we show interest in them. All of these things fill up their emotional bank account. It's like we're making deposits into the bank. And here's the thing. There are times when we need to make withdrawals. When we ask them to go back in, walk back in quietly, right? When we're trying to hold them to high expectations. When we need to administer discipline and consequences. Those are withdrawals from the emotional bank account. And here's the thing. If there's something in the bank account, if that student knows we love them and care about them and we have a rapport with them, when we need to make that withdrawal, it's normally okay. But if that emotional bank account is empty, if there is nothing in there and we have like a bad relationship with the student, or even not even a bad, just kind of like not really a relationship with the student, then those checks bounce. And that's when we have the blowups and the big problems. And you've probably seen this in the past. You think like students that you had so much trouble with, and then once you had the relationship, things were so much better. So the point is, we need to be pouring into this emotional bank account whenever we can. And we need to do so intentionally, especially with the students who are most challenging. They're the ones we sometimes want to avoid, but they're the ones we need to invest in the most. And sometimes if we do, they turn into our greatest blessings. I tell a story sometimes of a student she was my most challenging student for sure. We had many challenges I could list, but I won't. And I had her 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 6th grade was horrible. 7th grade started out horrible. Like even day 1, I was like, surely day 1 will be fine, right? Nope, day 1 was horrible. And I was just like, oh, we're in for another year. But gradually over the course of that year, things changed. And I know God was working in her heart, but it's also just continuing to be kind, continuing to try to build that relationship. And she ended up being one of my best students. And in 8th grade, she would come talk to me all the time. She loved my class. She loved to just come chat. And she even got to the point where she said, I can't believe all that idiotic stuff I did in 6th grade. Like, what was wrong with me? And it was just such a blessing. I got Christmas cards from her years after I was done teaching. It's just fantastic. So my encouragement to you is invest in those students who are challenging. They're the ones that need it, and you need that emotional rapport with them. Another thing that's really helpful, also from Stephen Covey, is the concept to seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is really helpful in dealing with discipline issues in general. And that is that we need to first try to understand where the student's coming from before we try to speak to them. I'm not talking about things like I blurted something out in class. I'm talking about more big picture or continual discipline issues. So, here's an example. You've got a student that's, just defiant, and maybe just particularly defiant today. Ask yourself why, and try to get the student figure out why from the student. Sometimes this can be a direct conversation. Sometimes it's a conversation with parents. Sometimes it's multiple conversations. But why is this happening? I think of one particular example where when I was in high school, one of my classmates' brothers actually tried to commit suicide like over the weekend or the night before. And I remember the next day in class, like a teacher didn't know this. I don't know why she wasn't informed, but it wasn't her fault. She didn't know. And like the student said something, and I remember she was like getting on him, and he like walked out of the room, and she was like, "What's she was just dealing with like a normal classroom issue, and she was not aware of the situation." And so sometimes it's something like that. Sometimes there's something big happening that we don't know. Sometimes, though, it's just a matter of getting to the why. For example, let's say that a student is really acting up in your class. They're acting like they don't care. They're refusing to do their work. But maybe you find out, like, really as a result of conversations and being patient and talking, you figure out, you know what? It's not that they don't care. They actually are really frustrated that they can't do this math. Like they're frustrated with themselves. And so they're just like throwing up their hands, and they're just like, I can't even do it. Why even try? And that doesn't excuse the behavior, but can't you have a much better informed conversation if you know exactly what the problem is, right? That's a totally different conversation than just, why aren't you trying? Are you lazy? Or whatever. Like that conversation is just going to bounce. But if you're able to talk with them about what's really happening, it's a much more powerful conversation. And it's the difference between this conversation or this one, right? And we all want the second type of conversation. So let's make it personal. What can you do tomorrow to start building stronger relationships with your students, especially that one that really challenges you? We're about to get to the Q&A here, but let's hear this. What are some of the things that you can do to build stronger relationships? And I can't wait to answer some of your guys' questions here. We're going to do a Q&A here in a little bit. Let's review first. We're going to find the right demeanor, develop systems to get and keep attention, shake up our problem area, deal with problems while they're small, and build stronger relationships. If you do this, you are going to see improvements. It's not going to be magically better overnight, but you're going to see improvements. Here's the thing, though. Classroom management is really nuanced. There are so many pieces that have to work together. And if you're missing only one element, it can throw everything off, right? If you're doing everything right, but you have the wrong demeanor, if you're not actually dealing with problems while they're little. Those are just a few of the things we mentioned here. And we didn't even mention a whole bunch of other things. We didn't talk about how to prevent problems. We didn't talk about specific expectations or consequences or discipline plans. We didn't talk about so many of these aspects. And so that's why I've created Classroom Management 101, because there's just only so much time in a 1-hour webinar. Classroom Management 101 is the complete organized system to help ensure that you don't miss any of the crucial elements. In it, I guide you step by step to help you develop and implement a strong classroom management plan. There are 6 modules inside the program. In the first, we talk way more about developing the right mindset. And we delve into that not just in the way we talked about, but also how to take responsibility, how to think about it when there's so many challenges, how to just face those mental challenges. In Module 2, we get into how to prepare your plan, and specifically, how do you develop a discipline plan? How do you find the right expectations? What are good consequences? All those types of things. Module 3 is about how to prevent problems, which I love. We didn't even get to talk about that at all today. There's so many things you can do that can help prevent like half of your problems from happening in the first place, kind of like I talked about with transitions, and that's huge. Module 4, we talk about how to specifically address certain problems like class clowns, back talk. How do you have a conversation with a student? How do you have a conversation with a parent? All kinds of things like that. Module 5 is about motivating and inspiring your students to learn. And Module 6 is kind of fun. We troubleshoot all kinds of challenging situations like how do you handle cell phones? What do you do? We talk about transitions in that module. We talk about what do you do if you get a student mid-year? How do you deal with girl drama? All these types of things. So how does it work? There's video lessons that guide you through each strategy, and you can watch them totally at your own pace. So there's no set schedule. It is up to you. You can start it now. You can save it for the summer, whatever works for you. And I also include a printable manual with the notes already taken for you. So you don't have to be sitting there staring at it. You can even listen on the go, or if you're like me, while you're cooking or washing dishes. So this is designed for grades K through 12. It's not really best for pre, but I think it works great for K through 12. If you're a new teacher, these are the things I wish I would have known before I taught. If you're struggling, it's definitely for you. Or maybe you just feel like I'm doing pretty good, but I just feel like I'm missing something. I think Classroom Management 101 will help you find it. I also have some special bonuses. There is a self-evaluation activity, which will help you identify your spots where you're struggling. At the end, we have our easy reminder system that will help you actually remember the things you've learned. And then I love our back to school bonus module. When it comes time next August, you go through the back to school bonus module and it will teach you how to start that school year right and take advantage of that magical first week of school. Now, if you sign up today on this training or in the next hour after this training, I give you a little time to finish it all up, you will also get a free copy, a free ebook of my Create Your Dream Classroom ebook. You'll also get access to our brand new classroom procedures that will save your sanity training. So if you sign up today, you'll also get both of these trainings. I'm also going to be giving away a free half-hour coaching session to one person. We'll pick one person at random of the people that sign up tonight to win a half-hour coaching session with me. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what is the price? Well, normally an individual license is $119 and a school license is $697. And that includes all the modules, all the activities, all the bonuses. But we're doing right now, and I love to do this a few times a year when we do one of these live trainings, we're doing a pay what you can afford option. And what that means is you can choose which of these prices you can afford. If you can afford the full price, great. But if you can't, you can say, I can afford just $100, or I can afford only $75, or I can afford only $50, then that's what you get to pay. And you can use one of these codes, either afford $100, afford $75, or afford $50, so that you can get access there. There's also payment plans available. So if you want to split it up into 2 payments, you can absolutely do that too. Finally, I also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I do not want you to ever have to worry, what if I get in there and it's not what I thought it was? If it's not what you thought it was, you could ask for your money back. And it does have to be within 30 days because of the way the program works. But as long as it's within then, it's absolutely no problem. So I just do that because I don't want you to worry about it. I have very few people ask for a refund. But if you need one, it's not a problem. So if you're ready to enroll or you just want to find out more, I believe it should be showing up, the Classroom Management 101. You can hit the Join Now button and you can head on over. And this is just, when you get to the enrollment page, there's a spot that says Add Coupon. That's where you add in your coupon code. And I'll put the coupon codes here so that you guys can see them while we're doing the Q&A. And I hope that will be helpful. Jennifer asks, is this a course that can be used for ongoing ACSI education hours or recertification? Yes, it is. So this course has been specifically approved for ACSI, which if you guys don't know, that's the Association of Christian Schools International. So if you are an ACSI teacher, it is approved for one ACSI CEU. For everybody else, it depends on your school's districts, but it has been approved by a lot of people. You do get a certificate at the end. The certificate lists 6 hours of work. So you do get a certificate at the end. What is the name of the book? David Covey. I guess you're thinking Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey's book is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So it's not specifically about teaching, but it's incredibly helpful. John asks, if I pay now, will I have access over the summer? Yes, absolutely. You get indefinite access. Can you use this over and over once you buy the course? Yes, I have lots of people. You don't lose access. I have people that have been in the course for years. They come back when they need it. It's there for you, absolutely. Ruby asks, how do you get your ACSI CEU? When you're finished and you complete the course, there's directions there. You basically email me. I check and make sure you've completed it, and I upload it directly for you. For everyone else, you get a certificate that you can submit to your own provider. All right, let's see what other questions we have, whether about Classroom Management 101 or about the things we talked about in the training today. Carol, I love your thoughts here. She says, I'm not perfect and I don't have perfect students, but I have learned to love the students I have. I love that. I make them all mine and make sure they consider me theirs. It goes a long way. Absolutely. So true. All right, some of these questions here. Let's see. Lori, if you're talking about Classroom Management 101 principal material, there is a manual in the beginning of Classroom Management 101 that has notes over the notes and highlights for the whole thing. If you need help finding it, you could email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com. But it's right there in the first module, the first introductory section of Classroom Management 101. How much longer is the webinar? We're officially going for 2 more minutes, but I'll stick on and answer a few more questions if you guys would like to stay and have any questions. Jonathan asked, will the price stay at $119? That's my plan for now. It does change periodically, but that's the plan. I forgot to say, this pay what you can afford promotion is good through next Thursday. So I know sometimes paydays are coming up, so you can sign up for it up through next Thursday, but the special bonuses are only available now. And welcome. Let's see. Oh, I've got emails here, so I don't know what the first name is. Welcome to Shanky and these others, and Sarah and Amy and Gabriella. Welcome. So glad to have you guys. Let me see what other questions I can answer here. Can I do this emotional bank account with parents? There were many roadblocks at the beginning of the year. Is it too late now? Great question. And yeah, if you're joining us, Sandra, in Classroom Management 101, definitely check out the lessons that talk specifically about parents. But I would say definitely the emotional bank account for sure is relevant for parents. And basically the thought there is just, developing that relationship, contact their student about just good things that they did. And that is so helpful then when you do need to have those inevitable conversations about the things that aren't going well, right? That's definitely super helpful. Let's see. Will this chat log be available after? I don't think it's the chat, but it'll be part of the replay. I don't think I have the actual log. Let's see. Christina asks, how often should you be in contact with parents? What's considered normal for the average child? It really is going to depend on a lot of factors, age, grade, how many students you had. In middle school, I had 100 students. And so, what was average for me in contacting a parent was probably, I sent like group letters. I might contact this parents, just say something good, like once or twice a year. But if I had this parent of a student I knew was struggling, I tried to contact them more often. But if you have an elementary class, I would say you should be in contact with those more often because you have a smaller class size. Oh, sorry. Lots of questions here. Definitely just keep asking them if you had them. Let's see here. How long does the Classroom Management 101 take to complete and how much work is involved? It's 6 hours of the main section is 6 hours long. And it's not a lot of work. There is no homework. There is no extra work. It is simply watching the videos. And like I said, the manual has the notes taken for you, and that's places to add in your own notes. So I try to make it as little work as possible. It does not waste your time. We just get right into tips. It's like this webinar. So it's basically, we're just going to go right into it one thing at a time. There are like action items at the end of each one. So if, for example, when we get to writing a discipline plan, I encourage you to actually write a discipline plan and I give you examples of how to do that and everything. So it's a great program to start now. And then, you can finish it over the summer if you'd like. But yeah, I try to make it as little work as possible because I know you don't have time for anything extra. And welcome to Kim and Jennifer and Linda and Sarah. So glad to have you guys. And Monica and Anne, Barbara and Catherine. Welcome. And if anyone's having any problems, my email is linda@teachfortheheart.com. Happy to help you out. Let's see. What would be a good shakeup for students who are constantly talking on the carpet or desk when I'm having trouble understanding this question. Talking when I'm trying to teach. Yeah, if it's just like a general talking problem, the simplest would just be to not let them into class. I think it might also be really interesting if you started a lesson and you just stood there and like think of something creative, like something that matches your personality. Like it might be interesting if you just like stood at the front of class and just kind of sat there and stared at them for like a while. I don't know, just something to get their attention. That's just the point. Kind of have a little bit of fun with it. Am I going to share the list of consequences that I talked about during the webinar? Yes, I do want to do that. I'll try to find them real quick. Hold on 1 second. Yes, I found it. Okay, I'll share the link right here. Here is the link for the consequences. Should be showing up here momentarily. Okay, someone asked, once I join Classroom Management 101, will I receive a link to find it, or will I need to reach it from the order? You should receive, either way, you should receive a link for it. Sometimes though, people put the wrong, like make a mistake in their email. So if you're ever having trouble, just go to academy.teachfortheheart.com, academy.teachfortheheart.com. Do we get the bonus material when we use the Pay What You Can Afford? Absolutely, yes. When you sign up right now, using Pay What You Can Afford, you get all the bonuses. You also get Create Your Dream Classroom. You get the classroom procedures that will save your sanity. I will send out all those bonuses tomorrow at some point, so give me just a little bit of patience as I get everything together. But definitely, yes, you get all of those. What can I do if I have a student that does not stay in their seat and finds themselves getting hurt when bothering others? Yeah. This is going to depend on your age and your grade. And I would talk to other teachers at your in a similar grade, because consequences vary depending on what's appropriate at your school and in your situation. But I would not tolerate. It depends on the situation and why they're doing it. If there's like some type of behavior problem, like if there's some type of situation, then that might be different. But for a regular kid, I would just simply find a way that's just not allowed. So you can either work with it on like a reward basis, like if you stay in your seat, you get this reward, and like work with them individually on it, or I would have an individual, some type of consequence for it, or some type of combination, and just really work with them with it. And, just have a conversation, be like, I'm sorry, I've let you do this. This is I shouldn't have let you been walking around, but we can't do this anymore, and this is kind of what we're going to do. Is there a certificate for the webinar? Yes, I'm sorry. Here it is. To get your certificate of attendance, head to teachfortheheart.com/certificate. Sorry about that. Yes, absolutely. Sophia, so glad that you're enjoying Classroom Management 101. So glad that it's helpful. How do I change my email? If you wanting to change your email, Virginia, just send us an email at linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we will get that taken care of for you. We can help you out with that. Is there a certificate for Classroom Management 101? Absolutely. When you finish it, you get a certificate of completion that lists 6 hours of work on it. So it just depends on how your school or district or state accept. Everyone has different rules, so we can't promise, but you absolutely get your certificate. Is the course open to all religions? Great question, Carol. This course is designed for any teacher. I am a Christian and I taught at a Christian school, so I do talk about God in it. I give some recommendations specifically for teachers that teach in Christian schools, but it's absolutely appropriate for anybody, and anyone would find it helpful. But if for some reason you're uncomfortable with a mention of God, that is in there. I just want you to know that it's in there. All right. Well, officially, we're at our ending point. So if you need to go, that is totally understood. But I'm going to stay here and answer questions for a little bit longer. Oh, and I'm forgetting to welcome people. Welcome to Laura and Kimberly. And I missed a bunch of you. Hold on. I just see them coming in and I forgot to refresh my page. Welcome to Kim and Deborah and Tanya and Brooke and Luis and Tina and Jackie and Jonathan and Lisa and Cynthia and Carol and Jeanette and Shar and Sheila. So glad to have you. Thank you guys so much. How do you have a relationship with students in a tested subject that is heavily monitored by an admin? I'm not quite sure exactly what your situation you're mentioning to. I don't see a tested subject. I mean, the relationships you have with students shouldn't be a problem with your admin. And once again, remembering, go back to the beginning. You're not trying to be their friend. You're being their mentor. You're focusing on being respected. You're just showing that you care. And this can happen whole class. It can happen. It can be as simple as walking by and saying, let's say you see a student doodling, and just saying something like, man, you're really good at that. Do you want to draw a picture of this cell we're studying or whatever it is, showing interest in them. It can be outside of class, right? I mean, if you see them in the hallway, just saying hi, paying attention, just things like that. And you can do, it doesn't have to take any time away from class, I guess is what I'm saying. Or at least very little. It can be, as students are coming in, as they're leaving, all those types of things. Oh my goodness, I did not teach the 2x10 technique. I thought this was going to be on here. Okay, this is a fantastic technique for those of you that are trying to build relationships, particularly with struggling students. It's called the 2x10 technique. And what you do is you say, I'm going to commit 2 minutes a day for 10 days. So 2 minutes a day for 10 days, I'm just going to talk to my most challenging student about something not related to school. So I'm going to find them at lunch. I'm going to find them in the hall. I'm going to talk to them for a minute after class or in the last minute when I'm giving the class free time. I'm going to take 2 minutes a day and talk to them about anything. And teachers that have done this have reported incredible results. So I can't believe I forgot to mention that. So for your most challenging student, I challenge you. There's my challenge to you to try that out. Danielle says, I'm trying to do some work softening my demeanor in class rather than being more firm. Will the Classroom Management 101 help with that, or is it more geared towards being more firm? Classroom Management 101 is geared towards helping you find the right balance in being both kind and firm. It's really built along kind of the structure of what I shared here. But definitely, you definitely are looking at that, finding that right combination of being empathetic, of being caring, of having your students know that you love them and care about them, but holding them to high expectations at the same time. It doesn't mean you just let everything go. So I think it will be helpful for you if you're trying to soften your demeanor, but yet not lose control. I think it will be really helpful. Did I miss the link? There's a button here, but if it's not coming through, don't worry. I will put the link right here for you to check out Classroom Management 101. Teachfortheheart.com/CM101. Does the offer end tonight? No. Pay what you can afford lasts through next Thursday. So I know some people get paid on Friday or get paid at the end of the month. So if that's important, if you need that extra time, pay what you can afford goes through next Thursday. But the ebook and being entered for the coaching call and the 50 procedures, those are bonuses just for right now because you guys are here live. You get the extra bonus if you're able to join us right now. So that ends tonight. The pay what you can afford will go through the next one more week. And welcome to Kim. So glad to have you, and Heather and Brianna and Sandy and Liz. And there's some other you've used that I don't see your first name. I just see your email. So welcome to you as well. We're so glad to have you. All right. Trying to see what other questions I've got here real quick. Will I be at the ACSI conference? Unfortunately, I don't think I will be. I'm hoping to travel again soon, but I still have an infant. I had a baby last summer, so it makes travel a little, a little not practical right now. Am I still going to share the list of consequences? Yes, if you didn't get that list was there. Maybe we can get it shared again. But yes, scroll down. I shared it here a little bit ago. Danielle, what are your thoughts on a disrespectful high school student who continues to blurt out or start conversations with other students out loud? These students are addressed multiple times, but every class has the same behavior. Okay, it's a little different if it's like if it's a problem for the whole class or if it's a problem for an individual student. If it's a whole class, I recommend a shake up. I also recommend just like kind of a frank conversation with them, just like an honest conversation, like, and even asking them for solutions like, hey guys, this is a problem. What do you think we should do about it? But if it's, and a shake up, I think would be helpful too. If it's just kind of a few students, I would use the 2x10 technique, start talking to those students, and also try to, when the opportunity presents itself, build that rapport with those students and also try to figure out like what's going on. Like there's probably something else underneath that, but I would definitely start with the 2x10. Travis says, I have large classes for 7th grade science. I have more than 40 and most of them, wow, those are very big. Do you have suggestions on keeping track of discipline and dealing with the little issues quickly despite the size of my classes? Yes, I definitely recommend some type of warning system in that. Like I said, I had some big classes. I didn't have 40, but I did have like 30 a couple times, and writing names on the board, like when you have a bigger class, like everything just has to be tighter, unfortunately. You just got to be more on the ball with everything. So I definitely found it helpful to do the names on the board, or like Class Dojo. It could be a better option for you. So I would definitely recommend some type of warning system with that, and just kind of being on the ball with it. And I really liked, though, resetting everything every day. Like I didn't want students to feel like, oh, I got my name on the board yesterday, I got to worry about that today. I started fresh every period. But having some type of individual thing really helped keep things from spiraling out of control. Let's see. Okay, if I still haven't answered your question, there are like a million questions in here, and I don't know how many of you are still on here. So if you have a question that I have not answered yet, if you want to pop it in here one more time, just copy and paste it, that would be super helpful, because I don't want to miss you. Welcome, Legacy team. Hi back. Let's see here. Da, 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 da. Someone asked if you have a copy of the slides. I don't have those. It's like a really big file, so I recommend going back over the video. But you do actually, I think they actually are included in Classroom Management 101. I definitely have this training class inside of it as a bonus. Okay. All right, let me see any other questions here that we're missing. Can we wait to start the course until summer? Absolutely. No problem with that. Yeah, you can absolutely wait to start till the summer. I would get in now with a great price, and you can do it again. Do it over the summer, no problem. You'll have access indefinitely. Melissa said, I have a few students that like to talk all the time. I will ask them to stop talking, and they won't stop. Okay. Yeah, that's tough, because at this point of the year, they're used to that. So if it's just a couple, you kind of have to know why they're talking. Is it just because they like they're just extra, they're really into, like, they're excited? If that's the case, you just need to talk about them like, hey, I know you love this class, but you got to tone it back. If they are just kind of out of control a little bit, in either case, like you might have to have just like a consequence with them. Like you might have to just be consistent and say, listen, like if I'm going to give you a couple two warnings a class, but if you talk that third time, like you're going to have whatever you come up with. So I would recommend that. Denise says, how do I use the code? You go ahead and click enroll, and you choose your plan. And then when you get to, I'll go back to it. There's a place right here on the checkout page where you hit add coupon, and you add it in there, and that will get you all set up. And welcome to Denise and Gail and Katie and Danielle and Paula and Ruthie and Renee and Amy and Shannon and Carol. I think that's everyone that's new. Welcome. That's awesome. And if for some reason you signed up, I do see occasionally, like if you missed the code and you got charged the full amount, just send me an email, linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we will get you squared away. Okay, got a bunch of new questions. Let me try to go through these. What do you do with a student who will deliberately do something wrong time and again just to get a reaction from the rest of the class? Okay, we have a whole lesson on this in Classroom Management 101, but you want to take away the audience. So that student is seated in the back of the room, where they don't have it as much of an audience. That student, sometimes you need to send them to sit in the back. Like you got to do what you can to take away the audience. And also at this point, like if you're not using consequences, you probably need to start administering some consequences if they're just basically refusing. They're doing the same thing over and over again. I'd also do the 2x10, and you might want to seek some administrative support at this point, just so that, if you're implementing, if you are going to talk with them and then, start implementing consequences, you want to have that, like your administrator on board with that. Carly asked a similar question. Do you have any recommendations for the class clown? I've moved him in a seat where others can't see him. Good. As well, I've had a few heart-to-hearts, but nothing seems to change. Yeah, we do. Like I said, we do talk about this some more in Classroom Management 101. You've done a lot of the good things already. So at this point, My recommendation would be twofold. I would talk to your administrator potentially. And I would also, I don't know if you are in elementary or secondary. If you're in secondary, I would talk to some of his other teachers and see if they found something that's helpful, or if you have access to like his teacher from the previous year. Let me just think if I have any other specific recommendations. Sometimes it helps to just talk to other people that have the student and get some advice, and insight from them. Yeah, I would start there. And okay, I'm going to keep thinking about that. Come back to that one. On top of my screen is number of students still here. It says 241 online. Yes, we still have 215 people on the webinar. I don't know if that's a question. Sorry. What do you do when a student has no fear of consequences and just doesn't care? Okay, great question. And I think this might tie in a little bit with Carly's question about the class clown. Like basically I've said, these are the consequences and they're not caring about it. So a couple things. First of all, there's probably something going on underneath there. So I would recommend the 2x10, talk with the student, develop that relationship. I'd also try, and this is not going to happen in one conversation, but try to figure out what's going on underneath. Like something's underneath this problem. At the same time, I would talk with your administrator. Sometimes you need different consequences. So that's something to consider too, is do you need a different consequence, something that is more relevant? But probably there's something going on underneath. If you can figure out why they're acting out, that can be really helpful too. And then you can deal with that, as opposed to like sometimes we're trying to deal with the surface behavior, but there's something underneath the surface behavior that's causing it. And until we deal with that, it doesn't really get fixed. And we talk about that in Classroom Management 101 too. Deborah asked, when will the replay be? Actually, it'll be available here shortly. As soon as this is done, it will be turned into a replay, hopefully, if the technology works. Amy says, I have so many kinders coming into my classroom with so many issues, parents in jail, drug use, poor parenting. They cannot even follow 2 separate directions. We are teaching a whole different group of kids these days. And it is so important to keep in mind what your kids are dealing with. Absolutely. You definitely have to keep it in mind. I do think sometimes, kinder, my hat is off to you kinder teachers. I would just encourage you that students can learn and be trained more than we think sometimes. And it's really, really hard if they're not being trained at home. You have an incredibly difficult job. So, but yeah, they can learn to do a lot, especially if it's like expected of them from day one. It's really hard once they've are used to the bad habits. It's really hard to break them of them. So, but I would just encourage you to, so in the beginning of the year, I would really try, next year, I would really try to hold them to high expectations. But at this point in the year, I would just look at a few things that you really want to work on. Like pick a few things to really focus on and focus on them with that. But yeah, that's really tough. Sophia asked, do I ignore the disrespect? No, I would definitely say not, but I'm not quite sure what you're asking. I don't know if you want to provide a little bit more clarification of your question. Lori asks, I need a personal coach. Send me an email, Lori. I do offer some personal coaching occasionally. But also, is your administrator able to help you? Do you have any other teachers at your school? That's one thing I did when I was really stuck. I found a teacher at my school that seemed to be doing well, and I just asked them for help. And that was so helpful. How can I watch the replay? I am going to send out a link, hopefully tomorrow. But also when we're done here, this link will become the replay, I think. Shannon, I struggle because I teach the same group of 7th and 8th graders all day. Any suggestions for warnings? I've tried giving 3 in each period, but they abuse it. I'm not quite sure what you mean by they abuse it. Are you giving a consequence at the end of that? So you kind of got to just adjust it to how it works. Are you not actually following through with the consequence? I've been guilty of that. So if you're not following through with the consequence, they're not going to care about the warnings anymore. If you're saying it's almost like you're giving too many warnings before the consequence, and you can cut it out. You can just make it, I'm only giving 1 warning, then the consequence, you can adjust it. I see what you're saying though. You're saying you have the same group all day. Okay, I understand now your question. You give 3 in each class period, but they abuse it. Okay, I would adjust it then, and I would have it only reset a few times a day. Like maybe pick, I don't know how how your day is broken up, but like maybe at lunch, like pick like 2 or 3 times a day where it resets instead of every period, since they're abusing it. Just adjust it to find a way that makes it work better. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. It works. Tanya says, I'm enrolled. I will use this for summer PD. Awesome. So glad to have you. Sophia says, trouble shooting challenge situations is my favorite model. Thanks. It's my favorite too. I'm glad you like it. Yes, more people. Yeah. Lori, send me an email. Maybe we can try to send me an email, linda@teachfortheheart.com. We can try to chat with you a little bit. Sophia, I love the idea you said have students write to you. And I'm not sure who you're responding to in this, but that can be that can be really fun to have students write you a letter and write them back. Maybe you don't do this with every student, but maybe with certain ones. That can be a really powerful thing. Oh, so glad to have you, Danielle. Linda@teachfortheheart.com is my email. Sorry, I'm going through these questions. I know I'm a little bit behind here. Will this training be available? Okay, if you have someone else needs to hear it. This training will be available on demand for about 2 weeks. So actually it'll be the same. It'll at teachfortheheart.com/training. I'll also send you guys the replay link. But teachfortheheart.com/training. After this webinar is done, I will reset it and make it point to the replay. And the replay will be available on demand for about 2 weeks. Okay. All right, let me see here. Sorry, just trying to continue to look at these questions. So Denise says, I have assistants who have different philosophies on classroom management. How do I address this? I would have a conversation with them and kind of just be open. Okay, I'm assuming this is your classroom, but these are your assistants. Is that correct? So if it's your classroom, you're responsible for it, but I would approach it in an open way. I'd have a conversation with your educational assistants and take that seek first to understand, then to be understood. Start by asking them, hey, what do you see? What are your ideas here? What are you noticing? And then once you understand where they're coming from, then you can tell them, okay, I hear, this makes sense. And you might learn a few things, you might get some ideas. And then you can say to them, okay, like I understand. And based on what they say, you can respond and say, okay, this is why I'm doing it this way. I really need you guys to be on board with it, and if they're educational assistants, when they have their own classroom, they can, I don't know the relationship there. I don't know if your guys are on the same level or different levels. If you're on the same level, it's a little dicier, but I would still do seek first to understand, then to be understood. That will help you in your conversations with them. But you need to come up with some type of agreement where you can at least be following the same plan. And maybe that'd be helpful to write out a discipline plan. Like this is how we're going to deal. These are like our official ways of dealing with things so that everyone's on the same page. And welcome. We have so many of you guys joining us in the meantime. Laura and Ginny and Jeff and Selena and Anne and Sarah. Oh, Guyleen. I wish I knew how to pronounce your name. That's beautiful. Welcome so much. Okay. I think I've answered most of the questions that came in recently. So still got 172 of you guys on here. So just wanted to see here. All right, got a couple more here. So if any final questions, feel free to jot them in here. I'm going to share the link for the classroom consequences one more time. That goes here. And this is just a list of ideas. They're not all going to be appropriate for you, but you should be able to find 1 or 2 that are. Okay, Deborah says, any idea on how to get a totally out of control class in order? I'm the 4th teacher this year. Oh my, they are 5th and 6th grade, extremely disrespectful. The current teacher sub is fresh out of college and has let them get away. Okay. Honestly, I would do exactly what I said in this webinar. I would have a plan, do a classroom shakeup, deal with the first problems that occur. You are not going to go from 0 to like 100% just on that. But especially with all this new, they have had so much upheaval. So you got to like be sensitive to that. But I would go through all the things I said, and you're going to see improvement. It's not going to be magical. It's been a rough year. Like it's impossible to get it's very unlikely to get all the way where you want to be, but you should see they or you should see improvement. Okay, that was the same question. I don't see the consequences chart. Okay, the consequences chart is there. Okay, looking at any last minute questions. What do you do if you are a 1-day sub? Oh man, that is a loaded question. I'm not sure if you have a specific question, Erica. Basically, though, I think elements of this are important. You obviously have to really change how you do it, but you need to have the right demeanor. You need to be confident. You need to have a plan. You need to say, you need to know in your head, this is what I'm going to do when someone talks out. This is what I'm going to do in this. Like, if you just having a plan, even if it's not the best plan in the world, having a plan will help you so much. So I would talk with some other subs, and just write out a plan. That one of the intangible elements of classroom management, we talk about this in Classroom Management 101, is confidence. If you are confident that you know what to do, students sense that. You don't even have to, like, they just know. They can see that you're confident and they don't cause as many problems. But if you don't know what you're going to do and you're not confident, they can also sense that and they pounce. And it's like you've lost before you've even begun. So definitely recommend that. Okay, a couple more questions coming in here. What do we do with kids with severe trauma, mental illness, and seem to have no fear of consequences? The goal is to get in trouble. I would definitely pull in administrative help with that. And I don't know if you have any trauma specialists or anything like that. Talk with the parents as well. It's just like it's a different situation. I would really talk to the parents. I would talk to other teachers, find out what works for that student, develop the relationship. If consequences aren't, if that's just not, then you've got to develop the relationship. You've got to take the other approaches. And like I said, talk with your administration, because sometimes the answer might need to be, them stepping out of the class when they're being particularly, like sending them to the office so they're not in your class when they're being particularly disruptive. How do you deal with students that hum during seat work time? Yeah, you got to just teach them that that's too disruptive. You might have to be patient with them and just say, hey, you're humming again, they might not be realizing they're doing it. So you might, yeah. Students, yeah, collaboration is key. I agree. What do you do students with learning disabilities like ADHD who disrupt your class? Once again, some of these are individualized. Talk with other teachers. Talk with that student in particular. But I would be careful from assuming that students can't do something. We sometimes, there are reasons that students struggle more, and an ADHD student is going to have more problems than maybe a non-ADHD student. But that doesn't mean that they literally can't sit still or can't learn to focus, And a lot of people have found helpful things like, let them sit on other ways for them to get out their energy, whether they're sitting on not a stress ball, one of those big bouncy balls, right? Or having a way to bounce their feet or hold something in their hand. So there can be other ways to help them get out their energy. But be careful about thinking, because they have the ADHD, they're just automatically going to blurt out things and I can't help it. You can normally still teach. In most cases, they can learn to be a good member of your classroom, just like anyone else. Okay. Marnie asks, will my class help substitute teachers? I've had a lot of teachers, subs, take the course and find it helpful. It's designed for classroom teachers, including specials teachers and stuff like that. So it's not specifically designed for subs, but I think it would still be really helpful for you. I don't want you to think it's for subs. It's not designed for subs, but like I said, I've had a lot of subs take it. They found it helpful. I would recommend to you the 30-day money-back guarantee. I would encourage you to just make sure you take a look at it. Once you get in there, look around and just kind of make sure, yes, I feel like this is going to be helpful enough for me to be worth it. And you can always email me within 30 days if it's not. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for being here. We could stay on all night, but it's getting late and you got to get to bed and I do too. I'm just going to welcome here real quick, Glenn and Kathleen and Lauren and Ginny and Jeff and Selena, Sarah and Anne. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for your time. Thanks for staying on the whole time. It was great to speak with you. Any other questions that I didn't answer, you can send us an email at linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we'll be happy to help you. Hope you guys have a great day. I'm just going to close in prayer and pray for you guys if you're still here. Thank you, Lord, for these teachers. I pray for each teacher that's struggling right now, trying to figure out the answers in their classroom. I pray that you will give them wisdom and guidance and strength. I pray that you will send them, help them know who to talk to, know what to say, give them guidance and wisdom, and just help them to be patient, help them to depend on you, and to finish the school year strong. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, guys. Hope you have a great night.